Lone Rock Beef Club held its weigh-in day this past Sunday as our Jillian Code was on the scene for the occasion.
Sunday morning, members of the Lone Rock 4-H Beef Club gathered to mark the start of their projects for this 4-H year.
I've been in 4-H for 2 years. I did 2 heifers, then this year I'm doing a steer. All my years I've been doing a heifer. This year I'm doing both, a steer and a heifer.
Each animal's weight is recorded. Members will later use that number in their record keeping to determine things like feed conversion rates and daily rate of gain.
My steer's a little small, so hopefully he gets a little bit bigger. And my heifer, she is very calm and relaxed, and I'm proud of that, but my steer's not as calm.
Weigh-in day is also a new experience for the animals as they're learning how to work in a new environment.
He was a little scared, and so he was a little skittish and jumpy, but he did well. I think he did well.
Members who have gone through this process know that raising a 4-H animal isn't easy, but it is rewarding.
The best part is probably looking how far you've gone with it. Like at the beginning, they might be wild and not very good, and then you get to the end of the year and you have them leading and liking you. You can feel a connection with them.
Finding that connection requires a lot of hours, some elbow grease, and
Patience. That's a big thing, because if your cow, if you're not patient with it, nothing's gonna go. Like when you're halter breaking it, you gotta be patient, because they don't know what a halter really is, so you just gotta let them get used to it and lead them.
Jillian Code, Primetime Local News.
Speaking of cows, let's take a look at your egg prices. The CFL is heading into its final week of the regular season as Evan Kenny and Jace Mackey have more with playoffs fast approaching.
Week 15 of the CFL's regular season is in the books, and with just 1 week remaining, the 6 teams who will be in the playoffs are set. Now, what isn't set is where the Eastern semifinals will take place. Jace Mackey is joining us now. Now, Jace, just take us through, this final week. I guess just what could happen in this final week of the CFL's regular season?
Yeah, a lot of things are set in stone. The only thing really when it comes to these playoffs is where that East semifinal is going to take place. So is it going to be in Hamilton at Tim Hortons Field or in Montreal at Provincial Molson Stadium? The road to hosting that game is a lot easier for Hamilton. They either need to win or to have Montreal lose, and they host that semifinal. For Montreal, they would need to win and have Hamilton lose in the final week of the season for them to host that playoff game in Montreal. So it's all down to the wire here, and I think that's the biggest storyline heading into the final week of the season.
So, Jace, we do know it is those 2 teams who will be playing in the Eastern semifinals. Now, you've seen each of these teams play live, at different points throughout the season. They might not be the exact same teams as what you saw, but who do you like in this matchup?
Yeah, that's true. When I watched Montreal, they came to Commonwealth Stadium at the beginning of the year. So that team is a lot different. They had Vernon Adams Jr. in quarterback. Now Montreal has Trevor Harris as their starting quarterback. And I think last time we talked CFL, I was saying that Montreal was my team to watch in the East, a team I liked a lot. And things have changed since then when it comes to their quarterback situation. And Vernon Adams Jr. is a quarterback that likes to move around a lot. Trevor Harris is more of a pocket passer. But we saw at their last game that they had last week that they did really well. And Trevor Harris did a good job of running that offense. That was, however, against a Winnipeg team that was benched most of their starters. So it's tough to see exactly how that team is going to stack up against a team that's really playing for everything. When it comes to Hamilton, they've really kind of set Jeremiah Mazzoli as their starting quarterback. He is the guy who's going to take them into the playoffs. And when he played in Edmonton, he had probably one of the best games of his career this season, at least. But the last game that they played last week against Toronto, that was really a game for who was going to win the East. It was probably as close as you get to a playoff feel in the regular season. And Mazzoli did not really have the game that he would have liked. He threw no touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So when I look at those 2 matchups, I think it's going to be even, but I do like the Montreal Alouettes over the Hamilton Tiger Cats. But the one thing I will say about the Tiger Cats is Hamilton's hosting the Grey Cup this year, so there is going to be that extra motivation to win those games because they want to be playing in front of their hometown fans at Tim Hortons Field.
Okay, Jay, so we now know about the East. Let's move over to the West, where things are now set in stone. You know, after back-to-back close victories over the Edmonton Elks, the Saskatchewan Roughriders have secured home field advantage for the West semifinals, where they will take on the Calgary Stampeders, who are making the postseason for their 16th time in a row. Who do you like in this game?
This game is going to be really fun and really interesting, and I think these teams are paired up really well with each other. Now, you mentioned that Saskatchewan has won a lot of close games down the stretch. I know that Duke Williams has had himself some clutch catches on short kicks, being able to keep possession of that ball and help Saskatchewan hold on to win some games down the stretch. And their last game against Edmonton was a real standout game for Duke Williams. He had a lot of yards, over 100 yards in that game, and really that was his welcome to Saskatchewan moment this year. I think Saskatchewan playing at home at Mosaic Stadium is going to make a difference. It's really hard to play in that stadium with those fans, and you know it's going to be a sellout for that playoff game, the West semifinal. Looking at Calgary, though, they're a team that started off the season not looking like themselves. They're making their 16th consecutive playoff appearance, but I think a lot of people weren't sure if they were going to make the playoffs starting the season, but they are really starting to gel, and Bo Levi Mitchell's is starting to return to form. He had over 200 yards in his last game, 3 touchdowns, and Reggie Begelton for the Calgary Stampeders was making his debut this season, and he had over 100 yards receiving in that game. So it's going to be interesting to see the battle of those 2 kind of newcomer receivers late in the year, Reggie Begelton and Duke Williams, and maybe to see who has themselves a game in this West semifinal. I am going to be going with Saskatchewan. I think Saskatchewan is a hard team to play in. And down the stretch, I know we are looking at the season series. Calgary did win that season series. However, I think the teams, like we mentioned in the East, do look different than they did earlier in this season.
Well, Jace, thank you very much for joining me and doing this. 5 games this week wrap up the regular season ahead of the semifinals Sunday, November 28th.
The Lloydminster Comp High School hosted the regional finals for boys volleyball this past weekend. And with more on the tournament, here's Josh Howerluck.
This past weekend, the Lloydminster Comp Barons boys volleyball team battled with hopes to clinch a spot for provincials. The Barons played in a 5-team tournament with the top teams booking their ticket to provincials this upcoming weekend.
3 of our teams from this tournament are going to go down and play at the provincial tournament in Saskatoon next weekend. So just like our St. Mary's game that you just watched there, all the competition is going to be at that level, and I think our boys are up for that challenge for sure.
These regional playoffs brought together teams from North Battleford, Warman, and Prince Albert.
We had a dandy game versus St. Mary's. They're always strong in the province. So it kind of lets us know where we stand moving into provincials. That being said, we should win our next games just to make sure we go to Provs.
The Barons finished the tournament with a record of 3 wins and 1 loss, finishing 2nd behind St. Mary's and 4th in the province. This secured their spot to provincials this weekend.
Well, you know what? It's a celebration because we've actually had an entire season. Something to be very thankful for. I have a wonderful group of boys, just great people in general. And to boot, they're pretty darn good volleyball players. So we're trying to put it together here so next weekend we have a shot at a medal.
The Barons will now be heading to Saskatoon this weekend to test themselves against the best in the province. Their first game will be this Friday at 1. Josh Howerluck, Primetime Local Sports.
Now let's check in with Shelby Clark once again for your second look at weather.
Thanks so much, update now, taking another look at your weather forecast. We'll be starting off as usual, taking a look at temperatures around central Alberta and Saskatchewan here. On the Alberta side, they're seeing some cooler temperatures with -1 in Edmonton as well as in Jasper, -1 as well in Athabasca there, while Whitecourt is the coolest at -3, -2 in Edson, while Rocky Mountain House and Red Deer are at that 0 mark. Switching over to the Saskatchewan side here, they are seeing slightly warmer temperatures compared to the Alberta side, but not as much here. 0 in Meadow Lake as well as in Melfort. Saskatoon is at that 1 degree mark, and Prince Albert's a bit cooler, sitting at -2. And as we switch over to our northern region of the provinces, they are seeing slightly cooler temperatures as usual here. -2 in La Ronge and South End. Uranium City and Stony Rapids are the coolest at -5 and -7. -3 in Wollaston Lake, while Flin Flon is at -1, as well as in Loche and Buffalo are sitting at that -1 mark as well. Switching over to this side here, they are seeing slightly around the same temperatures as what the Saskatchewan side is seeing. Slave Lake's at -1, while Fort McMurray is seeing -3. Fort Chipewyan and High Level are seeing the coolest at -6, -5 at Grand Prairie, while Peace River is at that -4 mark. But as we switch over to our southern region of the provinces, very jealous. They are seeing a lot warmer temperatures. Look here in Lethbridge is sitting at 13 degrees, 12 in Medicine Hat, while Calgary is at that 2 degree mark. 1 in Coronation, and Banff is kind of twinning the same as us at that 0 mark. And switching over to this side here, they are seeing a lot cooler temperatures compared to what the Alberta side is seeing for in the southern region here. 6 in Swift Current, while Moose Jaw and Kindersley at that 2 degree mark. 1 in Regina, while Estevan is at that 0 mark, and -1 in Yorkton there. And switching over to temperatures overnight across the region, we are seeing some cooler temperatures for the minus marks. We have been seeing some cooler temperatures compared, but we will be seeing flurries all throughout the region here throughout the night. Meadow Lake will be seeing a low of -5, so the coolest in Meadow Lake. Isla Cross, Paradise Hill, Murnum, and Provost will be seeing a low of -4, -3 for the low in Pierceland and Bonnyville throughout the night. And Unity and Wainwright will be slightly warmer with -2 throughout the night, but as you can see, most will be seeing some flurries throughout the night as they continue into tomorrow. And now taking a look at our 7-day forecast for here in the border city. Tuesday, we'll see some flurries continue on to -2. Wednesday and Thursday, we'll see a mix of some sun and cloud, -9 on Wednesday, so a little bit cooler. -3 for Thursday and Friday. And Saturday and Sunday, we will be seeing a lot cooler temperatures for the weekend with -13 on Saturday. And Sunday, we'll see a lot more cloud coverage at -7. While Monday, starting off next week, we'll be seeing -10. So we are seeing a couple double-digit temperatures there as we head more into the winter season, unfortunately. But now we're going to take another look at some more photo submissions that were submitted on our Facebook page. Thanks again to everyone that submitted. So far we have this one with Bernice sending in a beautiful winter photo there. Some nice snow. It's nice to see some good photos that are coming out of a winter season. Winter is not my favorite personally, but they are some beautiful pictures that people are getting. So once again, thank you to everybody that have been able to submit some photos, and we'll have more coming up after the break.
Today on Primetime Local News, I'm sitting down with Michelle Duchek from the Lloydminster Public Library as its staff are preparing to transition to a new location in the Lloyd Mall. Before I get too far ahead of myself, though, the library is indeed still open at the Atrium Center. So, Michelle, could you just kind of detail the library's plans for the next 2 months here?
Well, we're going to remain open to the public until the 3rd of December will be the last day, hopefully, that we remain open in Atrium Center. We will then shut our doors and open again to the public in January at the Lloyd Mall location. During that time, you still will be able to access the electronic resources as you've been able to do really through most of this process. And aside from a few days when they have to switch the phones over, you should be able to reach us by phone Monday to Friday, 10 to 6.
Then the new library location is set to include a number of new features, so I was just wondering if you could tell people a little bit about them and maybe if you have a favorite thing that you're most excited about.
I think one of the things I am most excited is to actually meet the public in a new space. a new space. We have new shelving. We've got new offices. Some of us have new computers, new phone system, which we're in the process of learning. So we just want to be up, above ground is one of the things we always like to say, and in a place where we're more accessible to everybody in Lloydminster, in terms of being a bit more in a more visible location, also with more parking, and also with access. You become one stop, go grocery shopping, visit the library, get your when the rest of the mall opens up, various things you can go to, and you just include us in your mall visit, which is going to be great.
And as you mentioned, with the library's upcoming closure, you're encouraging people to go online where they can access some virtual features. But for people who might already have a book signed out upon the library's closure, you're just telling them to hang on to the book until the new library opens, right?
Yes, we when we are closed to the public, we do ask people to hold on to them. However, if you are determined to return your books, you can, in the old location, as long as the external book drop is still open, you can return stuff there, or you can come downstairs in the atrium and drop them in the slot while we're still there. But we will be extending due dates for anything that was supposed to be due in December. We will extend them until January, so that we can hold on to them. And please don't bring them back the first day we open either, because we'd rather not have to. We're gonna have enough to deal with. We'd rather not deal with a whole pile of returns as well. One of the things we're really looking forward to is, as part of our first move, we had already moved part of our collection, and then with the mall flooding, we lost access. So the nonfiction, the mysteries, the science fiction, and the hardcover fiction have been waiting for us in the new location. We were so excited we'll be able to get back to providing those materials to the public.
Thanks so much for your time, Michelle.
No problem.
We have an author from Regina, Edward Willett, who has released his new science fiction novel, Shapers of the World, Volume 2. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, this is the sequel to Shapers of the World. What was involved with the first novel?
Well, first of all, they're not novels, they're anthologies. They are collections of short stories, and they are short stories by authors who were guests on my podcast, which is called World Shapers, hence the title, Shapers of Worlds. And so the difference is that the first one, Shapers of Worlds, the first one, which I kickstarted last year, features authors who were guests during the first year of my podcast. And this one features authors who were guests during the second year of my podcast. And hopefully there will be a third year of my podcast for Shapers of Worlds Volume 3 next year about this time.
Okay, I see. So these anthologies, feature stories from science fiction and fantasy literature authors. How did the idea to have anthologies filled with this come up originally?
Well, I started the podcast back in 2018. I've been in the field quite a while now, so I knew a lot of authors. And I'm also on a member of Sask Books, which is the Professional Association of Saskatchewan Publishers. And at the annual general meeting in 2018, a woman came in from Winnipeg who had successfully kickstarted an anthology for her publishing company. And I thought, hey, I know some authors. So I reached out to the authors I've been interviewing for the podcast, and I just made it 1 year because, I have to cut it off somewhere. And that first year I had 18 authors said they'd take part, and I had 9 original stories and 9 reprints. So I did it again this year. I have 24 stories, 18 original stories, 6 reprints. And these are authors who are, in many cases, international bestsellers, award winners, major award winners. Some of the top authors of science fiction and fantasy in the world today are represented in these 2 anthologies.
And are you able to give us some examples of which authors will be featured in the sequel?
Sure, I can hold up the book. Look, there it is. And it has people like Kelly Armstrong, Marie Brennan. I'm thinking of the ones that people might really know well. Matthew Hughes, Garth Nix, Tim Pratt. We've got Barbara Hambly, Nancy Kress, S.M. Sterling, Carrie Vaughn, David D. Levine. These are all names that are very well known within the field. And as I said, many of them are internationally known best-selling authors.
For new readers that are wanting to get into science fiction and they want to check out these anthologies, what would you say that they can expect from it from the first time?
Well, one of the great things about these anthologies is because the only common thread is that these authors were on my podcasts, they don't have a theme overall. The theme is simply these people write science fiction fantasy, and these are the stories that they wanted to showcase. And so you have everything in here from alternate history. For example, there's a story set in ancient Rome, but a Rome where the Industrial Revolution has happened. So things are quite different, even though it is set about the time of Christ. You've got Kelly Armstrong gave us a kind of a bit of a horror story, I guess you'd say, but sort of set about the time of the Old West. There's my own story in it is a prequel to my upcoming novel, which will be out next year, and it's set on the moon and is a straightforward science fiction adventure with a lot of humor in it. So you've got everything from outer space science fiction to alternate history to straight ahead magical sword and sorcery fantasy to urban fantasy, where you have, supernatural creatures operating in our world and our present time. So there's literally something for everything. If you don't like a story, there's another one coming along and it'll be completely different.
And since releasing this, how has response been from readers?
Really good. The stories, one of the great things about the anthology is that these stories bring with them their own fans. These authors bring with them their own fans. So anybody who likes one of these authors will hopefully buy it and check out the story by the author they like, but then they'll also encounter stories by authors that they maybe didn't know, and then maybe they'll go out and buy their book. So it's just a nice way to get a sampling of all these authors. And in general, the reviews that have come in so far, there haven't been a lot because it hasn't been out very long. But the reviews that have come in have been very favorable, and it's getting good ratings, and people give those little star ratings. So I've been pleased with the response for both. And the first one is still selling as well. And one of the great things is that as people find this one, then they'll go back and say, oh, there's a volume 1, and I can check out more authors. And next year, equally impressive list of authors already taking shape. So I'm really happy I started doing this. It's just great. I've always thought of myself as a writer, and I used to read short stories a lot. And it's just great to be able to actually publish short stories and be on the other side of that and publish stories by authors I've always admired, as well as my own.
And lastly, what I always like to ask, just in case, where all can people access this anthology that's now come out?
It's available through pretty much any bookstore you want to look at online. If you go to a local bookstore and ask them to order it in, they can certainly order it in if they don't have it on the shelves. It's available in ebook, it's available in paperback, and it's available in hardcover. So just wherever you like to buy books, you should be able to buy Shapers of Worlds Volume 2, or directly from my publishing company, shadowpawpress.com. You can also buy it directly from there.
Perfect. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us today, Edward.
Well, thanks so much for having me on.
That is all the time we have for right now. There is some more news coming up in the next hour, so you can stay tuned for that. But for right now, I'm Tate Lakecraft, and have a good night.